And apologies from Councillor Owen Phillips and Councillor Turley as the son. Welcome both. Okay. Okay. The evacuation procedure. Location plan on the exit and the assembly point situated on the doors of this room. Please familiarise yourself with it. On discovering a fire, please carry out the following: sound the alarm, attack the fire if possible and safe to do so using the plans provided. On hearing the evacuate signal, please carry out the following: exit the building by your nearest safest exit. All visitors report and remain at assembly point G until otherwise. All staff to report their designated assembly point on Wilcock car park. Do not leave the assembly point for any reason until to do so by the incident controller, who tonight is Becky,
yeah,
or fire brigade officer. Chapter 3, disclosure of pecuniary and non-pecuniary interests. To 4, public participation. I did have an email from Councillor Ridley yesterday, and acknowledge it late. But as we only meet every 3 months, I think it's unwise to delay it till the next one. So I've okayed Councillor Ridley to.
Really appreciate the fact that you've been letting me speak. The item agenda number 8, if you don't mind, that perhaps I've got a couple of comments to say. If that's okay.
I get to
appropriate.
Okay,
Thank you very much.
Councillor Simpson also asked a similar question, but obviously he's not here tonight and can't say any more from that because I don't know what it is. The minutes from the meeting of the subcommittee held on the 12th of January. Is everybody happy with those to be signed? Councillor Amelia?
Yep.
Oh, proposing, yeah.
Proposing.
Proposed by Councillor Amelia, seconded by Councillor Bates. All those in favour? Anyone against? Any abstentions? No.
Wasn't present.
Sorry?
Wasn't present, Chair.
Okay. Thank you. Agenda item number 6 is funding update. Becky.
Thank you, Chair. So what we're proposing to table at every meeting to formalise any budget requests that are coming through the subcommittee is to table a page that gives you those requests. So it outlines the funding that we've got through our Community Safety Partnership for a serious violence through Section 106. It also outlines 3 requests that you need to determine tonight on behalf of the police. You've got the inspector writing join us for any questions. So hopefully this will be a format that you'd agree is a bit more helpful. It gives us an audit trail about where the budget's going, and it gives the ability to do a few positive comments around the subcommittee of the budget that's been allocated at full council. So yeah, do you want me to go through the 3 requests?
Yeah, please.
So the first one, so these are all from Warwickshire Police. So the request is funding to purchase a TV stand and cable. I don't know if that's right, and if you wanted to give a little bit more detail on that one.
Yeah, I'm happy to. So we've started doing Facebook Live sessions. I don't know if anyone's seen.
Could you put your mic on?
Oh. So I don't know if anyone's been doing Facebook Live sessions recently. They've been getting more views as we've been going along. It allows people to ask us questions during that hour, which we'll answer live there on the feed. If there's no questions coming in, we'll just generally discuss local issues and what's being done to tackle them. During the Facebook Live sessions, the officers are struggling with the way that it's formatted to see the questions on laptop screens. We have been provided a TV by Warwickshire Police, but it's not a lot bigger than a laptop screen, so they're just really struggling with the administration of getting the questions and then reading them out as they're going along. So that's what they requested.
I really support the grant. However, I'm just a bit confused why the police, and I think the Facebook Lives are desperately needed, reaching out to the community and trying to break down their barriers. However, I just wondered why the police have not got a budget themselves to try and find this. I know that budgets are really tight, but it'd be really interesting to hear. But I do support it. I'm not saying it shouldn't happen,
No,
but
I completely understand. So we have requested one through our own systems, but the only thing they've been able to provide us is quite a small one. It's not a lot bigger. It doesn't solve the issue. And we weren't able to get one supported for a bigger one. So it was a request elsewhere, but we weren't able to do it internally.
Councillor Bates.
I have to say, I have seen these Facebook Lives, and I quite like the fact that if no questions are coming in, you can see a dialogue going between yourself as for the two of them. I suppose I'm in support of it. I think what I'm surprised about that it's only one, and how you can share one between codes and just is it
So the plan is
also to have one in both location.
the plan was to have it in Coleshill and in the offices for Madison when they want to do their Facebook Lives. They'll come over to Coleshill and use it because it's not too far for them. So it just seemed cheaper.
One question from me to Inspector Whiting. Surely within the police somewhere, there is a monitor that can be borrowed, pinched.
Honestly, yes, it's the size issue. My understanding from the Facebook Live, the way it's streamed, the questions come up very small on the side of the page. I've not done Facebook Live, but they come up very small, and we've been able to provide monitors that are about yay big. So it's a request for something bigger, so they can read it as they're going along.
£274 for a decent sized monitor like that just seems a little bit light, I would have thought.
I think it's. I'd have to double check. I apologise. I don't have this detail.
Councillor Ruth.
I don't want to offer extra money, but I just wondered what the other councils thought about the fact that you're going to have officers who might be working in Osprey villages up here, and then they want to do a Facebook Live, so they've got to drive over to Coleshill. And in the long run, it's not cheaper because, especially with the way petrol and diesel is. I mean, I think if we are going to fund this, I wonder about actually just funding two for £500. I think it will actually save money, and it's just one less bit of driving that our officers have to do, who already have, rural areas. So I'll just put it out to my colleagues.
So personally, as was said earlier, that my opinion is, or my feeling is, that the police should have a budget for their own equipment. I see where it's something that is an extra to what you'd normally expect. I can see that as a positive request, but to actually fund things that should be internally funded, I find that a little bit difficult, knowing what we've got. The funding that we have as a subgroup is not massive, and it's trying to use that funding for the best purposes for our residents. So with that, I find it difficult to support it for that reason. That in my opinion, it should be funded by the police themselves. Councillor Davey.
I just wondered, how long have you been doing it?
Facebook Live.
Yeah,
I think about 4 or 5 months.
and is it positive? Is it picking
Yeah,
up?
I'd say the first one that I watched, 'cause I've been in post for about 3 months. The first one I watched was lower in numbers than this most recent one. I had over 1,000 views, so it's picking up, and there's more questions asked. So it had picked up, yeah.
Councillor Bates.
Sorry to come back. I just think in this day and age, technology, it's a great way of connecting with the community, for people to have confidence to be able to ask questions. It is a chat box, so the screen isn't big. I've seen it. But even at work, we use Facebook Lives to support people in the community. And again, which is my point that I mentioned earlier, Sam, as the councillor area, I think cost-wise, having one in each location, it makes perfect sense to me because it would cost more to travel.
Yeah.
Okay. Sure.
Yeah.
Councillor Watson.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I mean, it's an interesting one to listen to all of you. And I find myself agreeing with Councillor Fury.
It's not even Christmas.
It's not even Christmas. But yeah, it does make points. This is how we're reaching out to the community. But I do take on board your point. It does seem strange that that police and crime commissioner can't find the money to fund it when you consider the recent increase in the PCC's kind of tax, etc. And we're going at zero. But I mean, ultimately, I think it's 500 quid. Yeah, and if it's going to make communities safer and it's going to make it more efficient, then I'm happy to support.
As long as you tell everyone we've all been.
Yeah.
But yeah, exactly that. Yeah.
I think that's the first post and a first sticker.
I think that is one of the things that certainly this subcommittee needs is acknowledgement of what we're doing. It's not just the police and 100% support for the police, but the police have done this. The police have done this with the assistance of that. You know, we're a team. We're not. You know, we're not differentiating between. We are a team, and that we all support it. So, would anybody like to make a
Shall I say?
that we go for from what's here?
No, it's two.
I'll second. Yeah.
It's proposal that we
R2.
that we go. Well, Inspector Whiting, is that
Yeah.
does that fit within your remit?
I mean, it does differ suggestions, but I really appreciate it. We just finished one in each SMT based and another minute.
Okay. Thanks. I'm looking at Becky one. Does that fit within our remit?
Yes, Chair, if you want to take a vote on it, I would propose £500 for two TVs in each area.
Okay.
Yeah, cool.
Sorry.
Did you say you're the
The tip shop then.
Right. We've got a proposal then that that we go for £500 for the two.
Yeah.
Second proposed by Councillor Davies, seconded by Councillor Bates. All those in favour of? Okay. So that's passed anyway. Okay, Becky.
Let's get to the second one, Chair.
Sorry.
Do you want me to do the second one?
Please, yeah.
So the second one again, Maxa Inspector Writing requested funding to purchase a portable speaker and microphone. Do you report?
Yes, I don't know how many of you have met our PCSO Mo, who does most of the Speedwatch community groups and does all the training. This request has specifically come from him as it was assisting with the training of the Speedwatchers. Apparently it's quite difficult, especially on the roadside, and we're doing training to everyone who wants to participate, depending on their needs, to be able to hear him. So it was mainly for that reason. It would also be useful for things like community group meetings, like I wasn't involved with, but my predecessor had before the bell. So that's what the request is for. So he'd be heard while she's delivering the training.
Thank you very much for allowing me to speak, Chair. So I'm really supportive of it. I'm just really concerned that at the moment we haven't had our guns collaborated in our local area, and we've got active groups that are ready to. So I completely support the training because I know how important it is that we got groups support, trained up in our ward. However, I do know that Mo's not proactive at the moment because he's not been working. So obviously it is important that that's there, but how long is it going to be before he's back doing the training?
I can't say for certain. It's still developing what's sort of happening there. It should, I mean, I'm hopeful it shouldn't be too long, but it will be, it should be within the next 3 to 6 months. It should be back training, but I just can't say for certain without disclosing what it is. I can't say for certain, but even if not, we can get other people to assist without training, and I'll look into the collaboration with them.
Councillor Watson.
Yes, thank you, Chair. On community speed watch, how are we finding it? Because a lot of the parish councils I go to, they're really keen to do it, but they can't find volunteers to do it often. So I just wondered, are you seeing an uptake in it? Because let's say a lot of parishes, I'm sure other members go to, it doesn't necessarily feel like that. And often the parish councils then have to buy the speed guns as well and will collaborate, etc. So I just wondered, just some assurances that actually it would be used and that you're seeing an uptake in it.
We are seeing an uptake in it. Mo's trained quite a lot of people. I think I think you're right, a lot of the issues stem from people who want to volunteer to do it, but we have got a number of active groups who still get new members, so we are still training people.
Councillor Rury.
Just wondered how many people normally attend the training in order to read the microphone and speaker. Because I've done the training in my village and we just sat around one table. Is that the norm, or are you training sort of 30 people at a time?
Yeah, my conversation with Mo, they have been up to 20 people, so that's when it becomes more important, especially with the range of hearing abilities within groups.
More comments? Anybody like to make a proposal? Councillor Williams.
Propose that we do the two.
Proposed by, seconded by. Councillor Rury. All those in favour? Anyone against? Any abstentions? All right, Becky?
Yeah, sounds good. So then your last one is for £2,000 for an additional 1,000 Faraday pouches. So insects items on again.
Yeah, we get a lot of uptake from the Faraday pouches and from especially keyless car thefts. So we've run out actually of the ones that we were given last time because the uptake was so strong on the rest of this any two bits.
If I can make a couple of comments around that. Firstly, again, we're a team and these are funded by this team. Then some of the impression is they're funded by Neighbourhood Watch. Some impressions are it's funded by the police, but these are funded by this group. And having spoken to Inspector Whiting at the RAG meeting, I do believe that there's been, and speaking to the PCSOs, if I can say, that there does seem to be a reduction in that type of theft now. And also the reception from them has been, you know, from my contact with both the police, public, they've been received very well. And as I say, it was all in response really to looking at the RAG figures that the keyless car thefts were certainly going up at a frightening rate, and looking to stop that. And hopefully for the next RAG meeting, Inspector Whiting will have some figures to show us of before we started purchasing these, and hopefully show that at least the figures have stopped rising, and hopefully they'll be on the decline. Inspector Whiting.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say. We were suffering with a lot of them. They have gone down on hopefully because of Faraday pouches. Whenever we offer them out, we always get a really good uptake on them, and we can definitely ensure that in some future comms we ensure that the public are aware where the funding's coming from, because that's important.
I know that there's been some requests coming from Staffordshire and Nuneaton, and I mean I'm happy for them to use our model, but certainly not happy to fund their cases going over the border. So maybe there's, you know, if somebody's like that, if there could just be a standard response saying that, you know, approach your councils, that you know, to say use our model, but you know, present it to either Staffordshire or Nuneaton or wherever they are applying. Councillor Rury.
Just I really support this. We've had a couple of vehicles gone missing from my villages in the last month. And I have to say the police response was brilliant. They came out, knocked doors, handed out Faraday pouches. And sadly, the best uptick is actually when a car's gone missing or a vehicle's gone missing. And that's when then you want everyone becomes interested. But just say thank you. I have passed it on to officers, but thank you, you know, for how sort of visual they've been and visible rather. Yeah, I really support this. Our neighbourhood watch. Officer Colin Cartwright was out the other night, you know, 9 and 10 o'clock at night delivering Faraday pouches, because residents were, I got him a list of residents who wanted them, and he went and delivered them, bless him. Yeah, so really supportive of this. It is unfortunately still an issue in the villages. And I believe they're after, it's vans at the moment, isn't it, that they're targeting?
Yeah, we have anticipated bans going a few weeks, but you're right, and people do tend to uptake more once someone nearby's car's gone, which is unfortunate, but at least we're still getting them out there and hopefully preventing more in the future.
Councillor Watson.
Thanks, Chad. Myself.
Who's first?
Was you, I think you were first.
Well, Councillor
Right,
Watson.
I don't know. Right, so yeah, I fully support this. However, I know that we've given and we've raised funding for the number of these in the past. I don't know how many thousand in the past. And I was just wondering, Chair,
Nearly 3,500.
and I was wondering, Chair, how we're controlling that we're not just giving them out, you know, how are we controlling that we distribute them in a way that everybody can get one and we don't get somebody that just turns up and takes a bag of 10 or 15 at a time, you know, how are we kind of controlling the dispersal of them, because, you know, we can get through 1,000 pretty quickly, and unfortunately some people will take a bag full and you'll find them on eBay the week later. So it's just, I was just curious how we kind of managing that.
So currently the main way that we hand them out is that usually when a car theft is reported to us, the next day we'll go by and we'll do door knocks on the local street in the local neighbourhood, and we'll offer them out, but we only offer, you know, the number of cars that belong to our house. We won't be offering them or sort of letting them help themselves. It is that PCs, PCSOs are handing them out individually to people and explaining how they work as they do it.
Councillor Jackson.
Thank you, Chair. I think this is a really, really important thing that we continually need to support. In my ward alone, in the last 2 weeks, I've had 4 cars and 2 vans been taken, and the police have been readily giving me Faraday pouches to hand out to residents that I've requested them. So, and obviously when I do have all parish meetings, I tend to take a big stack with me and it goes to each individual resident that requests them. But I think it is really important we continue to support. Whilst the numbers might have reduced overall, I know in my village it's gone up. So, well, not gone up, but continued to happen. Thank you.
Councillor.
The other Watson.
The other Watson, yeah.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I mean, I think a really good way, obviously after a theft, which is unfortunately too late, I think a really positive way is that parishes and town councils, I've seen them given out there. We're just following up on Councillor Jarvis's comment around, can we make sure that they know it's come from the borough council? Because I know when I was a number of parish councils and they were giving them out, quite rightly, I didn't get the impression, it felt like they were coming either from the police themselves or from Neighbourhood Watch. There was no reference to say that they were coming from the borough council.
Yeah, we can definitely include that, and I'm thinking, considering how today's got perhaps some of the comms regarding how you guys support TS would be really helpful.
I think from the comments that have been made, or the positive comments that have been made tonight, I think we've got the embryo of a press release there between the two groups that show the work that we are doing, and that, you know, this group has got teeth, and you know, we're taking actions based on trends of offences. So I'd like, you know, if Becky 1 and Becky 2 could get their heads together and do some sort of a comment release based on that, and just that push that what we're doing as having sort of positive effects within the community.
Yeah, of course.
Okay. Yeah. Well, from the chair, I'd like to move that we go with the request. Anybody second? Councillor Rooney. All those in favour? Any against? Any abstentions? Thank you. Thank you, Becky.
So your next paper about Project Edward just gives you an update on the road safety initiative and gives the information on the Young Road Users Workshop that Rachel Hall and the PCC led on Bodymoor Heath. I'm hoping Rachel did have a video to show us if it will work.
I did. I'm going to try. I got it up and then there was no sound, so bear with me.
If not, Councillor Jarvis, you might be able to do it from your chat if you click on the link and share your screen. No pressure, it's always worse, isn't it, if you want to watch and
Yeah.
if we can get.
I can try.
Oh, is it here? You spoke as though you know how to do it.
It's one, no, it's a document.
Yeah.
When we're looking.
Yeah, but he's not in the meeting yet, is he?
So Rachel's
I've got to be in the
I
meeting.
think it's
I've got it up, but I have no sound.
That's the Barnet to the rescue.
Well, that's muted, but fine.
Mm.
That's your speakers. So if, when you go to. Share.
That's it.
Let's just come in up here. It's not share screen.
Little bit, if it's failed with the round.
So. Okay. Yourself, you make yourself a box.
It's like
Well, she likes PCs.
You are still sharing. Let's get rid of this space.
Yeah.
Let's do the key. Yeah, hopefully, if you've got that checkbox for your sound. Don't know why it's turned off as default.
Yeah, it's like
Catching people out of work.
Thanks.
So when
Yeah.
Should we circulate it?
yeah, I could send it out separately.
Those that you put pedals on.
It's a link, but I can circulate it as well.
Technology is not on our side tonight.
So apologies, Rachel did come down earlier and it worked. And then when the actual Teams meeting started, it didn't work anymore. So apologies. But we'll circulate that. But Rachel, do you want to give a quick overview of how it went?
Yes. So the event for young drivers took place at Bodymoor Heath. We had students from the Aston Villa programme who were sort of at the age of thinking about learning to drive, and a few young people who had just passed their test. And we got them in groups and we were talking to them about graduated driving licences and what their thoughts and opinions were on having another step in between passing their test and free rein out on the road. And graduated driving licenses are mainly about sort of adding in potential restrictions that might mean that young people don't go out and drive with passengers potentially at night straight away. The groups generally were, I would say, more towards the negative side of that. They felt like it was, oh, well, I've passed my test now, so why can't I go and do what I want in my car? But then once we talked through, actually, there's quite a lot of distractions involved in having passengers and things that they hadn't potentially thought about. They're a little bit more open-minded to, well, I don't mind, you know, waiting a few months if that means that I might be safer and passengers in my car might be safer. There was a young person in the group who'd only had, I think it was it 3 or 5 driving lessons and then had passed his test. So graduated driving licenses are also considering like having a minimum amount of driving tests before people pass as well, which we all thought that was a positive thing. So there was a webinar that took place a couple of weeks ago where people in road safety professionals all joined and watched video that, sorry, I couldn't get up, but you'll all be able to have the link to discuss what the sort of feedback was. And there will be 2 more. There was another one done in Bishop Auckland, and then we will combine all of the 4 videos and they will go towards the sort of graduated driving licence proposal to government later in the year. So yeah, it was really interesting, and it's something that I would like to sort of progress further in the borough. There was a little bit of budget left because Aston Villa were very kind and didn't actually charge anything for us hosting the event. So I've got some more safety packs, and I'm hoping to go out when we have our community events like over the summer and talk to people about it at those. We've got some Project Edward promotional material as well, and then longer term potentially going into schools and talking about this as well, just to gather feedback and try and encourage the safer driving really for our young people.
I would say that I went to that presentation, and it was very interesting. And one of the most interesting parts was when the professional driving instructor, and she was part of some sort of a national organisation, I think. And in some respects, she was quite damning of the way that way some driving instructors operate. That they limit what they do with the learners. They don't take them through certain key elements, and I found that very interesting. The fact that, you know, some of the driving instructors are obviously better than others, but some of them don't take their students through all of what I would say are the required elements, like say one being sort of driving at night or something like that. That there is no requirement for that. And I think that was one of the things that came over. And so I think she was part of some national organisation of driving instructors. That, as I say, she was very damning in some of respects, but some of the things she was saying just made a lot of sense. That, you know, you can pass your test on a nice sunny day and then go out in the dark and be totally lost. That it's far. I believe it's just farther than just learning people how to drive. It's looking at the process of learning people to drive as well. That probably needs a bit of refinement, and you know, just tightening up that people are, you know, or students are given the opportunity of all the driving conditions.
That they teach you to pass the test rather than to drive properly. But I always think the black boxes to limit the speeds are very good, and the negative of it is if you don't follow the rules, your insurance goes up.
Yeah.
So I think hitting them in the pocket is probably better than telling them not to do something.
Yeah, they were very positive about black boxes actually because of the financial implications.
And one of the negatives with black boxes is that once the car's got a black box, whoever's driving it is recorded. So if you took PJ's car and raced the heck out of it,
Unlikely, but still.
but it would go against his record, not yours. And I think that's one of the maybe one of the downsides.
Evil parent. No, I wouldn't do that, Ray.
Thank you.
Councillor Jackson.
Thank you, Chair. So it was a really, really productive day. Anybody that knows me knows how passionate I am about road safety. And it was really, really good to listen to all the perspectives of the young people, hearing directly from them and their views on the graduating licences was really important. The honesty and like the openness with what they were thinking. Some of the things that really stood out from me, like one group was asked, so what do you think would be the problems with nighttime driving, with you being a new driver? And what would you see at night time? Well, obviously they said bends and, where there's junctions that you come up against. And they said anything else? And, it's really interesting that they weren't mentioning people or, animals. And so, it's not actually to restrict them. And I kind of think they understood that. What was really interesting was some of the in the videos that were shown after the event, and obviously the questions that were asked to the panel was really, really interesting. One of the videos that stood out for me, and the look on the teenagers' faces when they seen the video, and they said, so they asked this man in Australia, how many deaths do you think is acceptable in Australia? And he said, so last year there was 578. What do you think we should aim for next year? And he said, probably about 70. So he said, for next year, you think Australia should aim for 70 deaths? He said, yeah. So they brought in 70 members of this man's family and friends and said, now what number do you think would be acceptable? And this man was crushed. And the look on the young people's faces when they seen that was a shock. And this man was like so upset, and he was like, well, none, because, but that could be all of his friends and family wiped out in one thing. So, the realisation that this does happen to anybody. It was really good, and I really would like to see more interventions like that. I completely support it. And obviously, anything that we can do. And I do think if we can find any more budgets to help interventions like this would be really useful. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Rory.
I wasn't at the event, but it's, it sounds really valuable. I'm a 27-year-old, and I think one of the longest hours of my life was the first time he went out with his friend, and his friend was driving, and his friend's lovely, but I wouldn't trust him to, run me a bath, never mind drive the most precious person in my life, so, it's, and, I'm sure the same about your son, when he's first driving. So, I think this is whatever keeps our young people. And I think for young women, I think is it cancer the highest sorry, I've got a cold and my brain's not really working. I think cancer is the biggest killer of young girls, but like male drivers is the second. I'm sure I've read that statistic somewhere. I don't know if it's still true. So whatever keeps our young people safe. I just wondered when my son was that age, like lifts was a big thing. So they had their own kind of little almost Uber system going. And so you had these 17-year-old young people driving their friends out at 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. And they would like message each other for lifts, but they were paying for it, so, not regulated, not, inexperienced and not insured, I would imagine as well. So is that still a thing, or was it just a phase?
I'm not sure completely about what you're describing, but a lot of the young people mentioned about how well, once one of us has passed, then we can all give each other, like that person could give everyone a lift to like football training, and that would save money. And why would we all want to drive separately? So it's kind of like that sort of cost impact was quite important to them to like lift share and things. But then we spoke about, well, what would you do if the passengers in your car were like turning the music up and messing around and asking you to drive faster? And they all sort of felt actually that would cause me a lot of pressure and anxiety driving. So it was definitely a good topic to discuss with them because they probably hadn't thought about it. And then it might be that they're in that situation and then it's a lot to deal with. Aston Villa actually said that they have some rules around lift sharing with the young people, and they all have to arrive individually. It's something they were putting into place because it had a few incidents of messing around in the car parks and things. So they were very much supporting this initiative as well.
Okay, it's more of a comment than anything. Why have we not got a 2-tier driving test like they have for motorcycles? You're allowed to drive up to a certain size, and then you have to have another test to ride a machine larger than. A lot of the motor cars, you pass your test at 17, 18, and if you can afford it, all of it, you can go out and buy a Maserati and tear ass down the road, excuse me, and go balmy down the road. Apart from the police chasing you, but you know, whereas if you had a restricted size vehicle, irrelevant to whether you could afford a big car or not, if you were restricted, it would cut down a lot of the, what's the word I'm looking for, brinkmanship maybe? Oh, I'm driving around in this, well, look what you've got. Would stop all of that overnight. That's just a comment. How I think.
Right, the recommendation is just that they acknowledge the good work that Rachel and the teams are doing on this. I think it's fair to say that yes, we do. Okay, move on to agenda item number 8. This is Becky's report.
Again, if I run through kind of why the report leads us, and then I know that Councillor Ridley wants to talk. So again, something that we want to do moving forward is just to kind of strengthen the subcommittee and how it scrutinises some of the work. This report highlights what your community safety partnership priorities are, and also makes suggestions for this group to take forward. So I would suggest annually you pick about 4 or 5 priorities. My team will work through an action plan that this would be brought to every meeting of the subcommittee. It will enable you to kind of see the outputs and outcomes that we're achieving with our partners. It just kind of tightens that little bit of reassurance that, you know, things are happening around community safety in North Warwickshire.
Okay. Thank you. Any comments?
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, members, for allowing an interloper into your midst. I'm very grateful. I was really glad to see that this subcommittee was sitting, because it really meant that I could come and sort of say how concerned I was about certain aspects, and I really hope that perhaps the safety of women and girls can be put onto one of our priorities. I know it certainly is in our corporate plan about living safely and whatnot, but I just think the example that I'm going to tell you needs highlighting, and this is probably the best way in this subcommittee of being able to monitor and evaluate how we go about keeping ordinary women like us sitting here in this chamber safe and able to go about their daily business in our local towns and villages. If I may, I'm just going to read out in the victim's words an account. Both of the victims know that this is happening tonight, and I think Inspector Wrighting has had an email from me in relation to this. So there's no surprises for everybody. I don't like surprises, do you? So this is a first account from a victim. On Wednesday, the 26th of November, while sitting having a coffee with a female friend, A man approached us wanting my friend to move her car. Her car was parked with a blue badge on a single yellow line. He instantly started shouting at us, but mainly at my friend, using the most awful language, including the F and the C, repeatedly, at least 15 to 20 times. My friend said that she would move her car as soon as possible, but he continued with a barrage of abuse. I said that I was getting the manager, and then he started the barrage directly at me, calling me an effing bitch. He eventually left, and as we were putting our coats on to leave, he came back, and the barrage of abuse started again, and it was just as bad as the first time. When we got outside to the car belonging to my friend, he was by the car waiting for us, and it all started again in the street and went on for about 10 minutes longer, continuing with the absolutely foul language, waving his hands and pointing his fingers at us. At this point, I got out my phone. I was scared and took his photo, and he threatened to smash up my fucking phone. Excuse me, everybody. Eventually, my friend got in her car whilst he was still shouting at us, and she drove off in an obvious state of shock. I walked away at this time, and as I was walking home, and he followed me down the street, still shouting abuse. It was very frightening and intimidating. I went into the co-op to be around people, and a member of staff could see I was very shaken and offered a chair and water and offered to get the PCSO. I said I just wanted to go home. I was so frightened. After about 10 minutes, I left and walked around town for about 30 minutes, scared to walk home in case he was following me. Myself and my friends called the police and reported the incident. We do have a lady prepared to be a witness who we have details for, who was in watching while we had coffee. I have lived in Addiston since I was 14 years of age, and I have never been so scared like this before. She's actually said that she's still too frightened to come into town, and her husband usually accompanies her. Now, the police investigated the allegation. Originally, it was put aside because there was no suspect, although the suspect was associated with an address, a business address. The various interventions by certain officers, I'm very grateful for. The gentleman was eventually spoken with. But what I really found very hard to take was that I've only just recently found out that the suspect in this case actually said, well, it wouldn't have happened if she hadn't parked on my loading bay. Now, it matters not if it was a loading bay or not. It isn't a loading bay. She was legitimately parked. But behaviour like that in our streets in the middle of the day against ordinary women like you and I is not acceptable. Neither is acceptable when he told the police they didn't recognise me anyway because I changed my clothes and I followed them around the town. To me, that's an offence of stalking. So to sum up, basically, I would really like this subcommittee to look at the safety of ordinary women and girls in our towns, in our villages, and to stop this sort of behaviour. This is not acceptable in any shape or form. It matters not about actions, or I understand people get very riled about parking, about various incidents, but this has got to be stopped, and it's got to be stopped at the very root cause. So if we can perhaps discuss it as members, then I'd be very grateful if we could add that priority to our objectives on this community safety partnership. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Simpson, are you on the same topic? Yeah.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you for letting me speak, and thank you, members, for putting with me arriving late and then barging into the conversation. I couldn't really speak in support of what Councillor Ridley's saying. This is an appalling incident. But I've been in Hurst, I've been appalled at the number of unsolved rapes in North Warwickshire. And one of the things that I did, just to try and prepare for tonight, was I went on the Warwickshire Police website and looked for the crime statistics for North Warwickshire South and North Warwickshire North. And I only looked at the January statistics because they were the ones that came immediately available. And in both areas, in January, by far the highest crime category was violence and sexual offences. I'm not sure what is causing this, but we have to get a grip. If people are being abused to the extent that these two ladies were in our streets in the middle of the day, and frankly, those people are not prosecuted, what is the point? What are we all trying to achieve here? So I really do think a significant priority should be, I mean, okay, I'm not sure whether you call this violence or antisocial behaviour. Antisocial behaviour was the second highest category. Something's going badly wrong that needs to be addressed. Thank you, Chancellor.
If we ask Inspector Whiting if to pass comment on that before we go open.
Yeah, I'm happy. I mean, I wasn't sort of prepped for this question. I don't know someone warned me would be going here, but obviously it is important to us. The reason that prosecutions don't happen is generally for a variety of reasons. Sometimes it's because the suspect isn't identified. It's not ever because we don't want to, or that we have enough evidence but choose not to. That's not the reason we have to do this. Sometimes it's because victims don't wish to prosecute. They don't want to be part of the criminal justice system, or because we haven't got enough evidence to proceed further. But it's obviously part of our core values is to protect women and girls and women against violence. And that is always one of our core values to continue to be.
Councillor Ray.
Thank you. Two parts. One, I'd be interested to hear from Becky how you come up with these sort of 4 priorities, what it is that led you to that. I would, if we're going to stick with school parking, I'd like to see that widen to include perhaps like the speed watch, for example. I'm sceptical about school attendance because I feel like that's the Warwickshire County Council. Right, it should be a priority, and I'm not sure what we can do for that. It might be that you can explain that in more detail, but I agree with the fly tipping and the dog fouling, although I noticed that the officer will work sort of 9 till 5 and a lot of dog fouling is at 6 o'clock in the morning. So, you know, when it comes to the action plan, I'd like to see, you know, how we're actually going to deal with dog fouling.
Can I just say that? If you look at the job description, it just say that there'll be some out of hours working.
Yeah, but it suggests not a
the-
great, it suggests, was it occasional? I can't remember what the word was. Yeah, yeah, no, I did check the job description, yes. So I'm completely in support of this, and I think it's clear where this is coming from. I don't know if you've watched the recent Manosphere documentary, or read the book Men Who Hate Women by Laura Bates. I mean, there's a lot of evidence about what's happening online, and we're already seeing that translate into how women and girls are being treated in the street. And there's been cases of women and girls murdered across, you know, America and Britain. And although it's not reported in the newspapers, if you actually look at the court judgment, the judges do relate what's happened to, you know, the murder to misogyny and behaviour online. So I think what we're seeing is just the impact of that sort of incel online behaviour, and it's only going to get worse. So that's where I think it's coming from.
Anyone else? I see Becky, you ready to go? I thought you was going to say something. Sorry.
Yeah, through you, Chair, just to answer some of those questions. So in terms of where the priorities came from, so this was agreed with Councillor Jarvis, but it was things that we'd heard from our last subcommittee meeting. So these essentially were put forward as suggestions but up for debate. I would point out, so Councillor Bell had an additional priority in this. So in addition to school parking, to separate out dangerous and obstructive parking on top of that. So that kind of widens that remit. With regards to school attendance, so yes, it is obviously county council, but North Warwickshire has the highest issues in Warwickshire, and that's been reported to this subcommittee previously. This council did fund a pilot project. We commissioned county council to do some work for our UKSCF funding a couple of years ago, and that was a pilot in Atherstone. So there are ways that we can support some of that work regardless of it not being necessarily us directly. And obviously flighted and dog fouling is something that Sharon's team well aware of. Again, it was just kind of highlighting that it's the issue. I would suggest you keep to a max of 4 or 5. So if you want to knock one of those on the head to include your safety of women and girls, I think that's more than reasonable.
So Watson?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I mean, it's a really interesting conversation and listen to it, and obviously the example that Councillor Ridley has given is all fallen. You know, that should not happen. Picking up on Councillor Simpson's point, I mean, for those that know, my day job is actually in the security industry, so I end up having lots of conversations with Home Offices, and I think it's a broader problem. I think the challenge that we have is often when these people are actually pursued. I think in this case, it's the fact that why wasn't it pursued as rigorously as perhaps it could. But actually our sentencing is as well. Unfortunately, we have a fairly liberal judging process whereby they don't even follow MOJ guidelines around sentencing. And unfortunately, it creates a culture where things are not, you know, the New York subway, when they sweated the small stuff, they found that other crimes dropped because people knew that there are repercussions to breaking the law. So I do think, I mean, I noticed in the sanitised report, the violence against women or something is kind of taken out. But I do think that they're incredibly important, you know, that we can't just kind of pick others over that. It's almost like they're all important. And I do take the board to point, Becky, that if you have too many, then none of them's a priority. But it's a concern, a societal concern, that we sit here today with these types of numbers going up, with these types of incidents going up. And it doesn't feel to be actually a silver bullet to actually fix them all. So I do think it's a broader problem as well. So whether we should also perhaps ask our MP to raise some of these concerns at a broader level around how the justice system actually penalises these people, you know, when they go for the prosecution. Because I have a real concern from an MOJ perspective, or the judges not even following MOJ guidelines around sentencing.
If I just, well, Councillor Ridley.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. But I think it would have been, this may not have reached the standard of prosecution. It may not have reached the standard of caution disposal. But what he could have done is reach the standard of some sort of resolution, whereas he's either made to admit, well, he admitted that he was the person that was involved in the altercation. But the reason was he gave us because she parked illegally. Well, that's ridiculous. So I would have loved to have seen something that supported the victim and not just said, well, if you hadn't parked in this spot, you wouldn't have had this. That is no way a disposal of any description.
Let me just add to that slightly, and this goes back a few years. I went to a business breakfast at the Red Lion, and I parked outside the same shop, and I had nowhere near that. But he come out and told me, you can't park here, Sunshine, and that's been going on years. And I did raise it with the police at the time, and I'll ask the inspector that shop puts bollards outside their shop to stop parking. That in itself, I believe, is an offence. Is to stop parking. If that was, and it's all ifs, but if he hadn't claimed that as his, then maybe he wouldn't criticise people or attack people for parking there. And as I say, it goes back a few years. It's somewhere that he actually puts a load of bollards down there and claims that as his loading bay. And then anybody that parks gets the abuse that Councillor Ridley has highlighted.
Thank you. I think your point underpins the severity of what we've just been told, really, in the sense that you're a male and you wasn't given the amount of abuse that the female was given. And I think that aligned to Councillor Simpson's sort of detail on the severity and some of the crime and the stats. I think it's absolutely imperative that it becomes one of our priorities. I'm sure that nobody should feel unsafe walking down the high street, down the streets. So I totally think it has to be one of the priorities.
Sorry, Chair, I'm just curious actually, because I'm rightly or wrongly, I probably know how I'd respond. And I just think if you responded in a particular way and perhaps sat him on his backside, I guess you'd be in trouble.
Yeah.
Insane. That's where I think the thing goes wrong. Because if somebody's like literally, and from what I understand, it was a really aggressive, short of actual punches, it was a particularly aggressive verbal attack. If you kind of reacted, or even pushed away or kind of like that, you'd be in trouble or not the person who kind of started it. And I think Councillor Bates points behind it, probably wouldn't react that way if it was a male, if the truth be known, which underlines the actual problem. I agree. Interesting.
Any other comments? Well, I'm certainly happy of including it, right at the top of the list, because this just should not happen. End of. There's no discussion on it. It should not happen. It's how we stop it happening is a different method, and maybe it's something that we need to have a real deep dive at to see how it can be stopped. And I think the deep dive involves certainly the inspector and probably the town PCSOs as well. That certainly in Atherstone with the Town Watch radios, and I was with one of the PCSOs at the weekend, that they respond to that radio usually within minutes. They've got it on their stab vest, and say it shouldn't happen, but we've got to have a process that if it does happen, it's hit it and hit it hard. But it's how do you hit it and how do you raise it? As we'd all like to see, police and PCSOs on every corner. Being realistic, that doesn't happen, but it's got to be in a manner that responds pretty damn quick, not waiting for the wheels to turn and it comes out eventually. So I'd be perfectly happy to see it going. As Becky said, these 5 were really just a little bit of brainstorming and having spoken to some of the councillors of what do you think, because we did ask everybody if they've got any priorities, and surprisingly enough, we didn't have any emails come back from that. So we put that in just to promote debate, if you like, that yes, that's the starter for 10, but if you want a different 5, equally we're up for changing it. And as I say, personally, I think that it's got to come in at number 1, because that, while school parking is a problem for everybody, hopefully you never get any injuries from it. The other one is, whilst it may not be a tangible injury, it certainly could be a psychological injury. Councillor Barnett?
Yeah, I fully support that. I think I was quite surprised to see school attendance on this list after the discussion we had at the last meeting. And I know it has been a consistent problem and that we have got the worst stats in Warwickshire. But I thought at the last meeting we had a fairly lengthy discussion that there was very little we could do to impact that. And we really need to be focusing on things where we can actually move the dial. Regardless of whether it's a big problem, which it is, if there's not a great deal we can do about it, then I don't think it should be top of our list of priorities.
If I was to come back, that was one that I actually put in, wasn't it, Becky? Because going to the RAG meetings, we get the stats about school attendance, and it was sort of around the knife arch thing, and the number of offences where kids were excluded because of using weapons in school. And it was to dialogue with the police and to promote the knife arch in some of the schools who are reluctant to let it go in. That there is a problem, there are exclusion from schools, and that's why I put it forwards, to promote some sort of a reaction, if you like, that there is a problem, and I forget exactly the number, is it? I think it was 20 odd instances or something around that, where weapons were involved in schools. And as I say, it was discussing with Becky, not Becky, it was really to promote a discussion with the police to support the fact that the knife arch is not being accepted too well by the schools. If we could give, you know, Becky too, the wherewithal to say that we've got some statistics to say that there is a problem, and then we can, you know, look at it further. And hopefully that's something that that Becky can, you know, can take on board and use it to get the knife arch into some of the schools that are very reluctant to use it. Councillor Rowan?
Becky knows what I'm going to say. Oscar Youth Club would love to have it at the youth club, but I'm just waiting to hear from one of your colleagues about it.
It's the VR.
The VR, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So through you, Chair, Rachel Hall's tried really hard on here to get the VR programme. We'd finally got our first session in North Warwickshire sorted for a Dordon Open Day, and they let you down, didn't they, the week off. So we've had some cold hard stairs and stoneworks with the Warwickshire County Council. They have extended the licences, so we're still hopeful to get it into the schools and to the youth clubs. Unfortunately, we've hit a bit of a wall, but we're still doing that. And the idea is that we're hoping to go to schools with a bit of a menu of things that we can offer support with, whether that's through us or through our partners. So it includes the knife arch, the VR set, Loudmouth, who's your theatre production company, and the bleed kits and the first aid. So we're hoping that by having a plethora of opportunities, we're more likely to get take up from schools and get better engagement that way.
If you look at the figures that we had from the RAG meeting, some of them are frightening, aren't they?
Yeah.
The numbers that the exclusions and whatever. Councillor Jackson.
Thank you, Chair. I'm absolutely disgusted to hear that Warwickshire County Council are doing that. You know, to hear how important these projects are, and to say that we've only got the opportunity to get the first intervention in is disgusting, because how long have we had them available? You know, where it's their priority to get these school attendance down. What are Warwickshire County Council doing? Because right now I don't see them doing anything in my local ward, and I think we really need to start really pushing them now, because we need change. We need the next generation of children to grow up knowing that this way of life is not acceptable. And I think we should be writing to Warwickshire County Council saying how disgusted we are as a board. Thank you.
Sorry. Anyone else like to make any comments? Well, I think if we look at the five priorities, certainly I would look at. I'll say number one is the violence against women and girls. I think that has got to be a number one. The school parking, again, that's something that I think every councillor has raised at every school, at every meeting. And I'll quote our PCSO down there, it's an accident waiting to happen outside our school. So I think the school parking is one. School attendance, I can understand that where it sits within somebody else's remit. But I think within our remit we can certainly make some noises against the ones that are sitting on their backsides and doing nothing. Fly tipping and dog fouling, I think you could almost put them as one. Just put them as one, because it sort of falls within the same things. Unless anybody else thinks any difference, would that be an acceptable 5?
You've also got your dangerous and obstructive parking in addition to your school parking.
Yeah, but that was like an addition to that, wasn't it?
It was, yeah. We're keeping them as 2, just so we can differentiate.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm happy to sack off fly tipping and dog fouling because it's covered by Shannon through C&E.
Yeah.
That's something that, as a subcommittee, that you'd then have your school parking, dangerous obstructive parking, safety of women and girls in North Warwickshire. That's not like order, but you know. Your school attendance / exclusions, you might want to change that up. That's not specific to young people if we want to focus on the knife arch element of it instead of school attendance.
Which is, I think, when there's, obviously I forwarded the figures to yourself back in, some of them are frightening, aren't they? The numbers of exclusions and the exclusions. And the one that was really, the one that was aimed at Becky too, was, you know, the number of offences in schools where weapons are involved. And, you know, so, you could use that statistic to get the knife arch in, because the one that I attended up at COSA, it was very, very well attended. It was well accepted by the students, well accepted by the staff as well, and it wasn't that intrusive to the learning programme, because each class come down, had 10-15 minutes there, went through the arch, and job was a good one. And as I say, they didn't find anything significant apart from one lad had got a set of darts in his bag, which he forgot were there. But that was the only thing that could have been classed as a weapon. So, you know, I think, as I say, hopefully Becky can use that within the schools that are reluctant to use it, to put a bit of pressure on them to say, look, you know, we're not out to, you know, to slate anybody. We're just out to put a message there that carrying weapons just don't happen. Inspector.
Just to follow up on that, we were actually in this, I think it's Hartshill today, and we were getting some negativity from the school about not wanting us to go in. I think possibly due to previous bad experiences back on a personal level, but they didn't bring them to the school. But we are making headway, and we've got our first session booked in with them. It's not with the knife archers. They want us to go in and do more. They meet the police sort of session first before going in with the knife archers, but the hope is that we'll then progress to the knife archers to discuss it in the next stop sector week, which is later in the year.
Personally, I just can't understand why they don't want it, because it just cannot do any damage to any school. And as I say, having seen it firsthand at the boat, so it goes on. It was accepted well by everybody. That's about.
Yeah, I think just to second Becky's point, I think it might, for me, I think makes more sense to hone in on the knife crime in place of the school attendance. I'm not saying it doesn't have an effect on it, but again, we've just exhausted that we can't control that. So I think it makes much more sense to just take that one off and replace it with knife crime.
So that was the reason that I put that in there, is because there is an element of you know, exclusions with weapons. That was the sole reason behind it. So yeah, I'm happy with that, but not to exclude the knife problem within schools. You know, because we know it exists, and as I say, over the past few weeks, there's been this thing over social media where it's been pitching school against school, and you know, we need to stop that before it happens, not respond to it. We need to be sort of proactive and try and prevent it. So, do you want to read out the priorities, Becky, and then if we can all agree or have our comments?
Certainly, Jeff. I think we've landed on safety of women and girls within North Warwickshire, knife crime regarding young people, school parking, dangerous and obstructive parking. So they're your 4 I've got down.
Yeah, sorry, Chair. I guess, bearing in mind the criticism that we had aimed at us around fly tipping and not prosecuting fly tipping, I guess there is an element of nervousness from me around not having fly tipping there, because it is a scourge and it is often dangerous, isn't it? So, and I know it comes under your kind of bit, but I just think we also got a lot of criticism fairly recently about not perception, because it was perception rather than reality, about us not prosecuting.
Chair, yeah, you'll just come back on that. We are having a lot more success with prosecutions. We've got probably 5 in the pipeline at the moment, fixed penalty notices. I'm interviewing for a second environmental crime officer the week after next. As I think I mentioned at C&E, if any, there are some C&E members here, these things are taking a lot of time. Investigations take a lot of time, but the success rate has improved dramatically over, well, since we've had the full-time environmental crime officer, and now we're going to get another full-time, and I've had some great candidates. I'm interviewing 8 people the week after next. So that should improve massively as well. It's going to free Andy up, and he's going to help be working together, obviously, on fly tipping and dog family.
Okay, I think if we have that assurance, then I'm happy for it not to be in this specifically, but we cover it under environmental.
Absolutely.
Yes, thank you.
I think from Sharon's comments there, I think again that there's a good news story there that should be coming out, because through social media you always see fly tipping, fly tipping, fly tipping. If the success rate of prosecution is improving, that's a good news story for those upstairs to get a press release out that, you know, what we do, and hopefully get the word round to the ones that are doing it, that if you do it, you've got a very good chance of being caught and fined. So, you know, I think generally as a council, we're a little bit lax on good news stories. You've got these, but it's not plastered everywhere where we could, benefit from it. So maybe that, there's something that we've done with comms to highlight the fact that, at say 12 months ago, we was, I'd say 1 a month, but now 12 months later, we're doing 3, 4, 5 a month, and things are improving.
Yeah, Chair, we do work closely with comms, and because we're coming up to the end of the year, if you're not coming up to the end of quarter 4, we can certainly do a release around that.
Yes, yeah.
Numbers of successful outcomes.
So
definitely, we can definitely.
It's there to be publicised.
Absolutely.
If the data's there, let's use it to everybody's benefit, and hopefully, reduce the one. Is the fly tipping primarily the ones that you've got under investigation, locals, or is it out of areas coming to Durham?
Bit of both. Yeah.
Councillor Simpson.
Thanks, Chairman. I didn't intend to speak on this subject, but I don't think I can avoid it. I think the reason there's so much talk about it is because there is so much right. And I'm absolutely not being critical of the improved response and our improved success. But our success is a drop in the ocean compared to the incidence of fly tipping.
Yeah, Chair. Yeah, it's been the topic on BBC, well, on every news channel for the last couple of weeks. They've been focusing really on the larger fly tips, which the EA obviously deal with. But it's happening regularly. I know we're not here to just talk about fly tipping tonight, but we have had some great successes. Hopefully with the increasing resource, we've also getting an increasing resource in comms as well. Yeah. So that should help with everything. So going forward, but we will definitely do the release for the end of the year and some statistics around that.
Yeah, thank you. So, Chairman, can I just emphasise that? We've got 5 in prosecutions. There were 5 in my village last month. It's a long way to go.
Becky's outlined the 5 priorities. Is everybody happy with that? We have a show of hands that are happy with those 5. That's unanimous. Thank you. So that forms our basis, and every meeting will have a bit of an update on each one, and I'll hope that Inspector Whiting that we get an input from the police as well, because obviously some of these are joint enterprising that can hopefully give the results we want. Councillor Watson.
Yeah, thank you. Can I just comment? Because I was looking at, and I love a bit of Power BI, as I said last night. I was looking at the report on the Power BI, and it's a redacted report. Where is the full report?
Yeah, through you, Chair, so it's redacted because the business analyst team from County Council wouldn't allow it to be circulated any wider than the meeting it was proposed for. We're happy to circulate to members that it can go in the public document, so we can circulate it separately, and it couldn't go out, which is why there's a yellow paper for a few minutes.
Okay, cool, because I know we got the full report, but the one actually on Power BI, which I know we have a desire for it to be very much driven by that data. Information. So, okay, thanks for explaining that. So I couldn't quite work out why.
Yeah, and just for some reassurance, when now you've agreed your priorities, we'll go away and kind of do a delivery plan of that. So it'll be more than a verbal update. You'll get a report to every meeting of the subcommittee that outlines what's happened and the impact that it's had. We'll include all the statistics as part of that. Even if it means a yellow paper, we'll make sure that those ones are included.
Thank you. So everybody happy? Is there any more comments on that? If not, we'll move on to agenda item number 9, the staffing changes. Over to Becky.
Yeah, to you, Chair. So I brought the proposed community safety officer roles to the last meeting, which was obviously all agreed and endorsed. That role is going through job evaluation this week and after Easter. It was just to note as well that members will be aware that since 2021, the community safety related work has been coordinated by our senior policy support officer. And this is to kind of tell members that it's been a long time coming, but we now have a community safety specific post in the community safety partnership manager. So this report just outlines and gives the job description person spec for that post. So yes, that role now exists. It didn't before.
Okay. Any comments on that? And the recommendation is to note that. Is everybody happy to note? All in favour? Anyone against? It's unanimous. Thank you. Agenda item 10 is the exclusion of public address. Considering whether in accordance with section 100A(4) of the Local Government Act 1972, the public and press be excluded from the meeting for the following item of business on the grounds that it involves the likely disclosure of exempt information as defined by Schedule 12A of the Act. I propose that, seconded by Councillor Watson. All in favour? Thank you.